This week on Jerusalem Dateline, what the long-awaited U.S. peace plan might look like.
We've also built a robust business plan for the whole region.
Plus, one of Israel's best Muslim allies in the Middle East, Azerbaijan, and a new musical work highlights Ezekiel's prophetic vision of the Valley of Dry Bones. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Jared Kushner discussed the highly anticipated Middle East peace plan. Kushner, the White House chief negotiator for the plan, sounded optimistic about their proposal. CBN News White House reporter Ben Kennedy and I analyzed the likelihood that the plan will be accepted by either side.
Palestinians cut off diplomatic ties with the U.S. nearly 2 years ago, so finding common ground with them on Israel does not look good. Presidential advisor Jared Kushner stopped short in releasing details of their proposal, but said the plan will represent a comprehensive vision for peace.
Our focus is really on the bottom up.
That focus aims to tackle the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with a fresh perspective. The president's son-in-law and advisor Jared Kushner says there will need to be compromises on both sides.
How do you make the lives of the Palestinian people better? What can you resolve to allow these areas to become more investable? We deal with all the core status issues because you have to do it, but we've also built a robust business plan for the whole region. I think that the two together have the opportunity to push forward.
The challenge lies with the Palestinian Authority leaders who have refused to speak with the White House since President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. How do you get them to the table to even talk?
Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to get them to the table because the Palestinian Authority, from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to many other Palestinian officials, said this peace plan is really dead on arrival.
CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell says President Trump faces obstacles on both sides. Do you think the plan will call for a two-state solution?
I think it's going to stop short of a two-state solution. I think Secretary of State Mike Pompeo signaled that just a few days ago when he spoke before Congress.
The plan could also be a hard sell for Israel, given recent election results.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu right now is forming a government. Part of that government are three major religious parties. And if they see anything in this peace plan that touches anything they consider holy, especially the city of Jerusalem, they will reject it out of hand.
Now, Chris says it'll be key to watch for how other countries like Egypt, Jordan, and even Saudi Arabia react when the plan is unveiled. Those countries have shown frustration with the Palestinian issue and could seek their own peace deals with Israel. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the White House.
Middle East nations either criticized or praised an announcement by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to end sanction waivers for Iranian oil. Last November, the U.S. granted waivers to 7 countries and Taiwan to import Iranian oil. Pompeo said that grace period is over.
I'm announcing that we will no longer grant any exemptions. We're going to zero across the board. Our goal has been to get countries to cease importing Iranian oil entirely.
The move is just the latest attempt to economically squeeze the country the State Department calls the biggest state supporter of terrorism in the world. Yet one Muslim nation right on Iran's border is getting attention for its friendship with Israel and the Jewish people. That country is Azerbaijan. And CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl explores if it could be a model for the rest of the Muslim world.
Sitting at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, Azerbaijan is strategically positioned close to Iran, Turkey, and Russia, with a major asset to the east.
This is Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. Located on the Caspian Sea, the country is one of the world's major producers of oil and gas, and this city is the center of the country's economy.
Azerbaijan is a source for about anything between quarter to 1/3 of the oil import to Israel, and this flow of high-quality oil is very important for the state of Israel.
Oil isn't the only thing flowing between the two countries. According to Azeri President Ilham Aliyev, Azerbaijan has purchased nearly $5 billion worth of weapons systems from Israel.
And this is important for Azerbaijan to maintain its defense and its existence in a very challenging strategic environment.
CBN News talked with Israel's ambassador to Azerbaijan, Dan Stav, about his efforts to diversify the economic cooperation between the two countries.
Israel can be of help, especially in the development of the agricultural sector, which is a top priority of the government. And we have a cooperation with medical institutes, medical domain in general, education, IT.
And the relationship goes beyond economy and defense.
To be an ambassador to Azerbaijan is a special privilege, as the relations between the Jewish people and the Azeri people preceded the relations between the two states. And the mountainous Jewish community, according to some historical account, preceded Islam, Christianity. The first Jews, according to some myth, arrived to Azerbaijan after the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel in 722 before Christ.
The vast majority of the population here is Shiite Muslim, but the country is secular. The Jewish community has felt at home here for generations, and since its independence, Azerbaijan has had good relations with the State of Israel.
For centuries, Jews and Azerbaijanis lived in peace, friendship, and continue to live here in Azerbaijan. And the Jewish community of Azerbaijan is a very active part of our society. They contribute a lot to the development of modern Azerbaijan.
The attitude that you've shown to Jewish people in Azerbaijan over the years. The world sees so much intolerance, so much darkness, and here is an example of what relations can be and should be between Muslims and Jews everywhere.
Netanyahu said there are some 70,000 Azeri Jews that immigrated to Israel and act as a bridge between the two countries. Many go back regularly to visit their homeland.
You don't do it if you come from an environment that infested with anti-Semitism.
The two countries have had diplomatic relations since 1992, after the fall of the Soviet Union.
We don't consider Muslims as our enemies, and Azerbaijan is a proof that this is not the case.
In sharp contrast, Iran is the other Shiite Muslim majority country in the neighborhood.
There are such starking differences between the two countries, and Azerbaijan showed that it's not a matter of Shia.
Despite years of animosity, Stav said there's a growing understanding among Muslim states in the region.
Israel is not an enemy, and that cooperation can be very beneficial.
Their hope is that this example of Muslim and Jew standing together will serve as an anchor of stability in the Middle East. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Baku, Azerbaijan.
Up next, this Jewish commentator writes a new book about Western civilization and why it's under attack in today's culture war. Ben Shapiro is a leading young conservative known for his unsparing candor. In his new book, The Right Side of History, Shapiro takes a deep dive into what made the Western world great, and he points out that faith tops the list. CBN's Jenna Browder caught up with Shapiro and brings us this closer look.
Ben Shapiro can certainly draw a crowd. And sometimes protests, like this one at the University of California, Berkeley. But he doesn't let that stop him from sharing his conservative views.
The reason that I am here is because fascism does not own this university.
And oftentimes running intellectual circles around just about everyone he goes up against.
Ben, talk about what it's like when you go to some of these college campuses. You spark a pretty big reaction.
Yeah, I think that there's a willing attempt to undermine the very basis of what I stand for. People deliberately lie about what it is that I am saying. People will suggest that, for example, I'm a white supremacist when I am militantly anti-white supremacist.
In fact, the 35-year-old Harvard-educated lawyer is devout in his Jewish faith.
The attempt to paint me as some sort of racist, the attempt to paint me as some sort of bigot, or somebody who wants to hurt other people, I'm some sort of fascist. Those lies are the way that the left avoids the debate, unfortunately. The hard left avoids the debate anyway.
The debate is something he doesn't shy away from, and in his new book, The Right Side of History, he makes his case for how Judeo-Christian values and Greek natural law made the West great. You say this book is really about two things. It's about two mysteries. The first is, why are things so good? And the second, why are we blowing it? Explain what you mean.
So we live in the most prosperous time in human history, a time when a baby born can expect to live past the year 80, a time when virtually no one is living in starvation conditions in the West, when virtually everybody can expect to have a long, healthy life, when racial tolerance is at an all-time high, when freedom is at an all-time high. So how did things get so good? How did we end up here? Because 2 centuries ago, everybody was dying in nasty, brutish, and short fashion. So what exactly changed is question number one. And number two is, why are we so angry at each other amidst the most glorious conditions ever lived in by any human beings at any time? And the answer is, we have to investigate the roots of our civilization.
He says the reason we're tearing each other apart is because we've forgotten the foundations that brought us together.
And those foundations, I contend, in the right side of history, lie, one, in Judeo-Christian ethics, and two, lie in Greek teleology, the idea that we can apply reason to the universe and come up with good moral answers and scientific answers to the conditions that surround us. So that combination, the push and pull between human reason and divine revelation, that push and pull created the West. We have tried forcibly, in many cases, to undermine both of those bases for Western civilization. Then we're surprised when we return to the chaos that preceded them.
And it's that chaos he's trying to fight against on his radio and podcast show, cable news, and columns he writes for the Daily Wire, which he founded.
Ben, how does moral purpose play into all of this? You say we've really abandoned this as Americans.
Well, I mean, there are two perceptions of moral purpose that tend to merge in the West. Perception number one is that it is your job to serve God, that God put you on the planet not to serve your own ends, but to serve his ends. And this is in the Judeo-Christian tradition, the idea of revelation, that God gave you a moral purpose and that you have to live out that morality if you want to fulfill the purpose for which you were put on planet Earth.
And perception number two, Greek tradition, which he says suggests we all have the capacity for reason, and that, paired with virtue, is what it means to be human. In the West, he says these two perceptions merged.
So the idea was that serving God was serving reason at the same time, and that the push and pull between those two, applying reason to Judeo-Christian morality and applying Judeo-Christian morality as the fundamental foundations of reason, that is how you get to human rights, that's how you get to science, that's how you get to the idea that we ought to have political discussions, that's how you get to democracy as opposed to dictatorship, that the push and pull, the tension between these two poles is what creates the bridge upon which Western civilization sits.
As for why Christians should be especially interested,
I mean, I think the reason they should buy the book is because it gives a rationale for why Judeo-Christian values lie at the root of Western civilization. Because what we're hearing from all of our relatives is that you're an idiot if you believe in Revelation at Sinai or the Sermon on the Mount, that you're a fool if you believe the tenets of Judeo-Christianity, that if you believe any of those values, that you're basically a dunce, and that we could come to all these values on our own. This book is a ringing rebuke to that notion. You do need to make certain fundamental assumptions about the nature of the universe that are rooted in a God-based, orderly universe if you actually want to have a Western civilization worth fighting for and preserving.
He does.
Threatening to lock up journalists?
I needed 600 officers to protect me at Berkeley.
And puts himself on the front line leading that charge. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Coming up, a new musical work brings the prophetic vision of the prophet Ezekiel in the Valley of Dry Bones to life. More than 2,500 years ago, the prophet Ezekiel wrote about a vision he had in the Valley of Dry Bones. It's a prophetic picture of the restoration of the Jewish people and the birth of the nation of Israel. Now a new musical composition called Ezekiel Out of Exile by composer Ruth Fazell brings this vision to life. Take a look at the trailer, followed by an interview I did with Fazell overlooking the city of Jerusalem. Ruth Fazell, great to be with you here on Jerusalem Dateline.
It's great to be with you.
We just watched a dramatic trailer of Ezekiel Out of Exile. How did this come about?
Oh, wow. You know, as an artist, I'm a violinist professionally, but every once in a while, I feel like there's something inside me that needs to come out. And so this piece came about because I was feeling that, and I would pray about it. I would ask God, so what is it? What's this piece? I need to give it birth, you know? And then finally, after probably a couple of months of just trying to second guess him and everything, and then early one morning I woke up and I just heard Ezekiel 37. I thought, that's it, the Valley of the Dry Bones. And so that's how it came about.
So it comes out, it's very dramatic and all about Ezekiel 37, as you say. What's the message you want to convey?
The message I want to convey is God's faithfulness and how when he says he's going to do something, he does it. And so, for instance, in the vision, we just see the whole thing about he asks Ezekiel to prophesy. Ezekiel prophesies. Towards the end, God says, and you will know that I, the Lord, have done it. It's like, I will bring you back to the land of Israel. I will settle you in your own land, and you will know that I, the Lord, have done it. I think that's the message, that he's done it. Look at this. You know, he's done it all. And I think sometimes we forget it's God who's done it.
Yeah. So we see the dry bones have come to life, as you said.
Exactly,
you look
exactly.
In Israel
you
today.
see around, especially on this day, which is a very busy day here in Jerusalem, and many, many visitors, and you're just seeing life.
Do you also want to
know?
bring a relationship between believing Christians and religious Jews?
Well, I think, yes. I think one of the things I'm realizing is that now we've, you know, I wrote the piece, and then I wanted to help people to listen to the piece. It's a 45-minute work. It's classical music in its style, and I knew that not that many people sit down and listen to a 45-minute piece of classical music, so how am I going to help? And so I decided to create a film where the music is central, but there are images that help you to stay with the music and stay with the text and really focus on it.
Yeah.
So I just see it as an amazing tool, really, for bringing Christians and Jews together to together hear God's word, to hear his faithfulness, to hear and remember what he's done, you know.
You recorded this in Slovakia, and as you say, the music is the main driving force, not the film.
Yes, that's right. So that's a challenge, because film very easily takes over. We're such a visually oriented society now. And we love to see things. So to give you images that you're not kind of figuring out, oh, what's that or what's that, but you're sort of maybe in the middle of some smoke or some clouds or some fire. It tells the whole story, and it really takes you inside.
Ruth, what's your vision for taking this forward?
My vision is to see the film move beyond just the film, and to include it with orchestra, choirs, everything, like the performance on stage with the film, so that it really gives the opportunity for people to come. Really, it's a happening in God's word, you know.
Well, look forward to those kind of performances here in Israel.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to those too when they happen.
Up next, finding the balance between preserving a stunning new archaeological discovery and making way for the future. A major archaeological discovery in Israel raised the question of how to preserve the past without stopping progress towards the future. CBN's Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl takes a look at what happened when a modern highway and an ancient biblical town came to a crossroads.
No one expected to find the biblical town of Beth Shemesh from the time of Isaiah and Hezekiah.
We thought that the Assyrians destroyed, and it took years for us to come back, and that everyone left and there was no one here. But that's not true. And we know it's not true because we have these finds.
Archaeologists believed a much earlier site on the other side of the road was all there was to Beth Shemesh. But before expanding a highway, they excavated and found a treasure.
What they understood from the finds is that after the city of Beth Shemesh was destroyed in the year 701, by Sennacherib, king of Assyria, a very, very famous historical and biblical event. A new settlement was founded not on the top of the mound, but on the slope, on the eastern slope of the mound.
The road also connects to the Elah Valley where David killed Goliath, and Beth Shemesh is associated with the return of the Ark to Jerusalem.
We can read the Bible, we can study history, we can learn archaeology, but when all of those three elements come together, then we have the proof of that history and that historicity of the biblical text.
Jar handles with royal seals, smashed figurines, and other artifacts from the site are on exhibit at the Bible Lands Museum in Jerusalem. But there's more to the story.
The progress that is required to build a new nation with housing and roads and infrastructure requires digging down and building new things.
Modern-day Beth Shemesh is about 20 miles outside Jerusalem. It has a population of more than 110,000 and is growing fast.
It's complicated because I want to protect the road. I want to protect the site, and I need to find the way to protect both of them.
Archaeologists and developers knew they had to work together and fast.
The reality is that people need homes and roads need to be created, and there's this balance, there's this debate in how do we do it.
And they came up with a compromise plan to alter the road and still preserve the historical site with the hope of developing the past for future generations. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
That's one more story showing how the past, present, and future all weave together here in Israel. Well, that's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.